I was not always a fan of AI. I started off, I guess, I was a skeptic at one point, but then when you see the way the wind is blowing, it's up to the individual to change their attitudes and their opinions of AI. And eventually somebody's going to wake up and go, wow, AI is affecting every element of my life. I previously did not like it much, but I mean, here we are, and I need to use it to do some task. And we are coming quickly to that moment in our society.
Dr. Keith Clement works as a professor in cybersecurity at California State University, Fresno. He serves the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services as a leader on the Cybersecurity Task Force. This is what he had to say about 2026 trends in cyber.
Well, I just had a report to Congress that was, a report to Congress that was generated, and there's a second series of articles for them, and there's an op-ed piece that came out, and apparently they took the two um, white papers that were authored, one on career pipelines and pathways in cybersecurity, and the second on the convergence of AI and cybersecurity and education, workforce development, and campus infrastructure. They have made those two white papers into a book. And I'm waiting by my door for when it gets delivered. So I'm so
Wow,
excited. So a
that
lot of
is
stuff going
exciting.
on.
Yeah. I You mentioned that you're starting as early as kindergarten, introducing the cybersecurity concepts. Like, what does that look like? I have a kindergartner myself and a first grader, so I'm, curious how they can start getting involved and learning all that.
So, well, it's interesting at the K and pre-K levels, we're not looking to turn people into, Johnny Rambo or Cyber Warrior. It's really very subtle, actually. It is to develop academic resiliency so that they can do well enough in school to get the kinds of jobs that we're going to talk about here. It involves a lot of making sure that they are reading and computing in math at grade level, because otherwise they will never catch up in their lives. So the earlier stages of it look just like school reinforcement and all of that, with the beginning of a culture of acceptance and confidence with technology. I mean, that's all it really is. They need to feel comfortable with technology, and that they need to feel like technology is their friend, and not be scared of it. There's a lot of people out here that are saying that, these younger generations or Generation Z, they're all techno wizards. And you know what? They may spend a lot of time on the computer playing games or whatever
Sure.
they do. They may spend a lot of time on a computer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are growing their technical skills, right? I mean, you install some software and you hit play, and does that take any special skill? I mean, that's we're all expected to have that kind of knowledge. I have an 85-year-old aunt that can get on a computer and do what she wants, and they need to have that culture that is not existent, or there's a lot of uncertainty that occurs with technology, and if you get to it early and young in the process and have it make a difference in their learning curve, they're going to do just fine. So that's the earlier steps of this. And incidentally, I think that a capture the flag or gamification kind of stuff is what is really useful for youngsters. It's so fun that they don't know that they're learning, and then after they learn some stuff, and they're like, "Wow, I think that I learned how to do this and in a game, and I was having fun." And that the learning is kind of the afterthought, I guess you would say, because they're enjoying it in the process, and then it gets more and more sophisticated, and
Hmm.
then they're going further down the rabbit hole of security and AI. And the schools of today are much different than the schools that we went
Yes.
to.
There's a lot of gamification, like you said, in the learning process. So my 7-year-old, she understands how to read and she can read like, short stories and stuff, but keeping her attention always sort of the challenge. And especially with what Cyber Skyline has to offer with having, capture the flag. And I wonder, how that will expand to the younger years, the elementary years, and how they'll apply these concepts. Because like you said, they're very important, but even though they understand how to use technology, they may not understand how everything works under the hood, and they might not understand all the processes. I'm interested in, what that curriculum might look like, but it sounds like it's all kind of in the works right now.
So people just, they wonder what I mean, but specifically, there is no shortage of curriculum or exercises or capture the flags or whatever. There's no shortage of the material. The issue is that they haven't strung it all together into a coherent pathway that is logical and makes sense. So, like, for example, when I was 12 and I had to do a library assignment, I had to write a paper. I went to the library and I went to the card catalog and they had 8 or 10 entries of something that I could use. And I got all of them and then I wrote up my paper. Well, nowadays, if you hit any subject and enter, you get, 3.1 million hits in 1.8 seconds. So the problem is not enough information. It is too much information that has to be organized and curated, if you will, so that it matches well and it matches over time. When I first started in curriculum development and such, I had to argue with people in the industry, and I know this may go out to industry, so if I'm taking a swipe, here I am. By the time they finally came around to the way of thinking to include cybersecurity in high school, well, I was already down in the middle school because, if you're a community college professor or teacher, college begins at 6th grade because 6th grade is when their grades matter and are counted against them and determine what kinds of schools they get into or not get into, as opposed to just pass or fail the 5th grade. And so something really changes. I asserted that cybersecurity should be taught in middle schools now. I got all sorts of racket. I mean, they said, well, what you said high school, and then now you're saying middle school, and now I'm saying elementary school, okay? So there would be an element of security in all grade levels, at all levels of education. I mean, we talk about vulnerable populations or protecting vulnerable populations online. Why do we not have more digestible materials and content for kindergarten, first graders that would begin to teach them how to stay safe online and have individual mitigation strategies? So I think it goes all the way through the education process, but in different ways.
I totally agree with what you're saying and championing that stuff at a younger age because kids are getting phones, younger and younger.
The lawsuits are stacking up and corporations need to be responsible for safe products. On the other hand, I would also make the caveat that parents need to be very aware of what their kids' ecosystem online is, and I mean young. And it could be about identity theft, right? I mean, it could be about that trying to steal their information. But actually, I think that the more concerning aspect of that is that there are adults that pretend to be kids that hang out on gaming sites that are addictive to kids, and they are making their acquaintance and deepening their acquaintance, and they think that they're playing with a little 5 or 6-year-old kid on the other side of the neighborhood, and they're playing with a 35-year-old creep. So
right.
There are many concerns about that. We cannot reduce the important role of a parent to do this. But then again, how many parents have the technical expertise to be really assertive for their kids in the online environment?
How is AI changing traditional entry-level cybersecurity jobs, especially roles that people used to start in like SOC Tier 1 or alert triage?
AI has changed every element of the cybersecurity world. And so the profound changes begin at the entry level and they persist all the way through the career ladder. There is no area of cybersecurity that AI has not touched and probably radically touched as well. In terms of the entry level roles, I think that there are about 13% less jobs in entry level positions in cybersecurity. And you can blame a variety of economic and corporate and other factors, with AI being probably a big one as to those jobs being lost. Hey, the bottom line is that any position or any job that requires lots of machine-based tasks are in big trouble with AI. The reason why AI is important, I think, in cybersecurity is that the human response time just can't keep up. And machine-driven attacks can be so fast, and human defenders, will be less important because the AI defenses will also have to be scaled for speed. And that probably takes the human out of the loop for many aspects of cybersecurity. And the human in the loop is still going to be key, of course, and there will be a cyber industry. I mean, this will not get rid of the industry, but it is changing the mechanics of the job. It is changing the technical and the human competencies that are necessary.
Based on your statewide work so far, what jobs or responsibilities are now becoming the new entry points for people coming into cybersecurity?
That recent congressional report that I mentioned, I laid out a framework of what a converged AI cyber professional would look like at all levels of preparation, entry level, intermediate, advanced, and executive level. And it really looks like it looks like 40% cybersecurity or security. It looks like about 40% AI stuff. And the additional 20% is regarding the cloud. And the cloud is a very important actor in the AI stuff, because that's what you have to use to handle all the blazing output that you get from AI. And so it would overload your machine in 3 seconds if it was to go crazy.
What do you think is the most effective way for companies to tap into the pipelines and apprenticeship programs that you've helped build?
So apprenticeship really is a mixed bag. I love it to death, and I'm the hugest fan, but I have to also be realistic about apprenticeship. And we have really struggled getting employers and the industry involved in apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is only as useful as there are jobs for the apprentices that are academically prepared. And, companies and the public sector are big about internships. They're familiar and comfortable with the idea of an internship. But, an internship is a 120 or 200 hour usual smaller commitment, whereas an apprenticeship requires 2,000 hours of on-the-job training, or the equivalent to 1 year of full-time work.
Yeah.
And while it makes so much sense intuitively that apprenticeship would really assist in the hiring of the 500,000 jobs in cybersecurity that are currently available, employers are not embracing the model, and that California has done a notable job here, and a couple of other states. I think Colorado comes to mind. That states are really struggling to implement the apprenticeship model, and it is because we have the students that are looking to get into the field, but we have an industry that is reluctant to hire potential apprenticeships. And apprenticeships, something like 70% of apprentices stay at the organization that hired them. So there's tremendous retention. There is a cost savings. An apprentice is about 60% of the salary of the journey person in that area. So, I mean, it's almost like they can get two intern or two apprentices for the price of one full-time employee. I mean, 120 is a little bit more, but they are reluctant, and that is a main barrier. So we have really tried to overcome that. That is a barrier that we have gone into.
What do you think is a practical step that organizations can take to strengthen their talent pipeline while AI keeps reshaping beginner level work?
Well, I don't know. I'd be pretty nervous right now if I was in HR department or the a person doing the hiring and trying to predict out X number of years for staffing needs. I think that that would be a pretty scary job right now. I mean, the economy is changing, the workplace is changing, the cybersecurity job and workplace is changing. With all of these changes going on, I think it's really hard to predict what types of levels of preparation they are anticipating of their future workforce. And so that's why we are up to building collaborations all across key major stakeholders and partners in California about how to do that. You have to have the industry, you have to have the public sector, you have to have the academics, and you need to have the community-based organizations as well. And they are the four legs of the chair, and they are all are important. And we in academia rely on industry to tell us what they need or what they're going to need. Part of the problem is the rapid pace of technology is so fast that I think that even they're having a hard time understanding what they really need of people, and the role of AI in their workplace. I saw a report yesterday that a survey that 96% of federal agencies anticipate deploying AI this year.
Hmm.
So, I mean, what is that going to do to the job market? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I wanted to bring it back to AI and implementing that in organizations. When organizations bring in external AI tools or agents that connect to their systems, what should early career analysts be taught about oversight, guardrails, and safe use?
there was a saying that AI is coming for your job. Well, that's ridiculous. AI trained people are coming for your job. I think that AI used to be considered a soft skill, like be a team player and consensus minded and all these kind of communication skills,
Mhm.
ethical use, uh, governance and oversight. I think that that used to be a soft skill that it was, pretty really added to your employability, but probably wouldn't get you the job naturally, inherently. But the issue today is that AI is now considered an essential skill, and it is intended to be used for daily work, and it is intended for new and other employees in the organization to leverage their time into more than a 40-hour work week. They are to use AI to routinize tasks that are time consuming or bothersome, to give them more time for higher value aspects of their job. And so that's one thing I think that new employees need to be thinking of is, how do I manage AI to assist me in my workload? And employers need to have a ethical or reasonable usage policy of AI. I ask many employers, so tell me about your acceptable use policy of AI. And I get this so often now. It's just like a get out of jail card free. They say it's under development. Oh, okay. Well, under development, what do you plan on having an acceptable use policy? Because the fact is that your employees are using it, and you would be held liable if they are using it inappropriately. Like, for example, feeding private identifiable information of people into a public AI workspace. That would
Right.
be, you're putting your students at risk or your employees at risk or whoever
Yeah.
that is. The problem with GRC is kind of like the problem with education that I mentioned a second ago, that, innovation, you could have a brand new worldwide tech revolution tomorrow, and it's going to take 10 years, if you're lucky, to get a to get the legislation and a regulatory framework in place.
Right.
And by the time they get that done, we're going to be 10 years down the road on some new technology. So, it's kind of like building the plane while it's flying at 32,000 feet. I mean, you build what you just absolutely have to have, and you kind of worry about the less important systems. Well, in this case, the less important system may be the humans in the loop, that there are a lot of people that are caught up for no reason, no fault of theirs. But like, for example, valuable college majors on a campus are changing. Some people have said that the arts and the humanities is dead or dying on a college campus. It can't be more than the truth. I know a lot of AI folks are looking for people out of the arts and the humanities because it requires communication, and it requires the addition to AI of the human contact. And what better academic departments are into the human condition than in the arts and the humanities, and specifically their writing and their digital creation skills. So AI is very assistive to some people that choose to use it, but most people, and I think that the 40% of Americans that don't value AI today is because they don't understand it. They haven't bothered to get beneath the hood of the car and take a look for it. But the fact of the matter is that Pandora's box has been opened. The genie ain't going back into the bottle, and that we are going to have to deal with AI irregardless of your personal preferences. And it's that's a critical comment right there, but it is the truth. I work in the workforce development field, and some workforce development professionals do not think that AI is a good thing for people and for jobs and the workforce. And I'm like, well, you're probably right, but the fact is that AI is receiving trillions of dollars of investment. Agencies, organizations, companies, individuals are looking for ways to AI to streamline their operations or their efforts to maximize their benefits. And AI is not going away anytime soon. And being an ostrich and putting your head in the sand while AI goes on around you is an awful idea. And, I think that you may have some reservations about it, but, you need to be in this modern technological world. You need to be competitive in that area. And that's the advice to entry-level folks, is if you have AI skills, you will be in much better shape. I was not always a fan of AI. I started off, I guess, I was a skeptic at one point. But then when you see the way the wind is blowing, it's up to the individual to change their attitudes and their opinions of AI. And eventually somebody's going to wake up and go, wow, AI is affecting every element of my life. I previously did not like it much, but I mean, here we are, and I need to use it to do some task. And we are coming quickly to that moment in our society. And I would be interested to see how other societies, a global, how they are approaching AI as well. This is going to be the dawn of the AI era, and it's just ramping up, and we haven't seen nothing.
Thank you so
Yes,
much
indeed.
for the conversation, and hopefully we can speak again. I really appreciated the conversation.
Thank you very much.